Hello everyone, my name is ERATTIC, and today I'm joined by, do you want to introduce yourself?
I am, Thyme. I'm a Destiny YouTuber. I've been playing for a minute since Destiny 1, and today we're going to be ranking all of the raids, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, we are.
Fantastic.
It's good to have you on.
Right then.
We're going to go
good to speak to you,
from
man.
start to finish, so when they came out.
Okay, we're going to go chronologically.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. So I guess we start with Vault of Glass, but I have noticed, well, we've both noticed, we have one Vault of Glass.
There is.
And there is obviously the remastered version. And that is a bit of a technical one, but what do we say about this one? So have you played both versions?
Now, I've played both, but the thing is,
Okay.
I am assuming you've played the original more in its prime.
Yes, very long time ago.
So
very, very long time ago.
Because I played the original 5 years after, which doesn't help.
So it'd be interesting then. So where would you put Vault of Glass with your personal experience with that raid?
So I played the original 5 years after, and then I played day one about a week later.
Okay.
So I would
Alright.
say, I think if you only ever played the original, I think
Yeah.
it might be in the A class. It's a tricky one because it is quite easy. The more you do it, the repetitive it gets, and it's
especially in the
long,
second
and you
game.
just want encounters to be over sooner.
Okay, I'll say this: it's the first raid that ever came out. It's got a special place in my heart as one. I remember when exotic drops were really, really low. You know, there was this chest that's not actually in the Destiny 2 version. You know, when you go into Gorgons,
Right.
you actually go left and you hop up, and there's this really cool door.
Right.
And that's where a lot of people would have get their exotics. And also, when Vex Mythoclast first came out, it was super powerful in PvP, and this raid was like the place to be, and there was so much going on in there, and it was a really, really fun time. But now, how does it stack up against all these other raids at the bottom?
I don't know,
so
man.
well.
Not
It
too
is
well.
Still,
That's-
it's a very, very good raid.
I tell you
It is
what,
a very good raid.
That's got to be another thing, because not just Vex Mythoclast, but you got the adept versions of all the weapons. So Fatebringer was exotic at one point as well,
exactly.
instead of
And then
just
we had
legendary.
the anniversary, I think it was called.
And the time lost weapons just don't match up with the adept ones, in my opinion. Like, even though they were basic and some of them did take a while to finish, I was still excited to see what I was going to get out of the chest if I was doing the 390 versions for the adept weapons.
Exactly. There you go.
I tell you what, we'll stick in
Destiny
B.
1. Yeah, I think
I'll stick in B.
I will say this. If it was Destiny, if we're looking at this strictly from a Destiny 1 perspective, I would be putting in A, maybe even S, because it was their first raid. But being that we are comparing this to all of the other raids, I think you're probably right moving it down a little bit.
Yeah. We'll move some things around at the end.
We can shuffle about.
But I'm happy with sitting in
that
B
is a
for
very
now.
solid raid. I have no problems with that raid. There's no
Okay.
encounter that I don't like doing. It's a very, very fun raid. Great rewards. Cool exotic. Right. Next up.
Crota's
People aren't
End.
going to like my opinion on this one.
Crota's End. I tell you what,
This is.
we might have the same
Go on.
opinion on this. Where are you going to put it, though?
Okay. I really like Crota's End.
So do I.
I really like Crota's End. Notoriously called a strike or a dungeon, or compared to missions in Destiny 2.
If this comes out as a
Crota's
dungeon
End
next
is actually
season,
really fun.
we're going
I
to be the
would
biggest
play it.
clowns.
I love it. We can't put it. Surely we can't put it above Vault of Glass. No way.
Oh.
So I'll say this: I've soloed this raid. It was one of the most fun things I've ever done in Destiny.
Okay.
Very rewarding. That was when we had the exotic swords, Dark Drinker. Really, really fun raid to solo. Flawless, actually. Solo flawless. But yes, it's very broken. The bridge encounter notoriously had so many problems, and you could pretty much skip that whole encounter by just picking up a relic. I love the opening encounter. You fall down into the pit, and there was some really cool strategies with don't touch me's, and there was some skips, nice little chest in there. And then we defended the plates, and you had the Weight of Darkness, which just came back in one of the new strikes. Really, really cool opening section. But obviously, Harrison, what's the biggest problem with Crota's End?
It's
The length of the raid.
It's
People hate that this thing is really, really short.
it's
So
length, and even though it's really easy, do you know, for 390, it was very restrictive. Like, if you messed up at the end at all in any way,
Yep.
well, it was a straight wipe, and it was very tough to recover.
there you go. Exactly.
So-
you sort of have that one chance, I guess, without the regeneration.
Exactly. So
Yeah, I mean, what? Okay, this is a good question for you. If this was, would you say this is on the same level as a raid layer, or would you say this is maybe even lower quality, even one of those, or too short to be one of those, or where would you put this in that sort of sense? Because I sort of look at this as a dungeon now. With the current dungeons that we have, we just didn't have those back then.
I look at it as a dungeon because everyone else does, but do you know, equally if it came back as a raid, I still wouldn't be mad.
Yeah, exactly.
Just because
it could do with one more encounter, you know, I think that would sort it out. One more encounter.
Do you know, it's not a bad
maybe
idea either.
Just before bridge.
No, it's not a bad idea.
But hey, I would have to put Vault of Glass above it, but from our opinions, personal opinions, we both really like this raid, and I probably would rather play Crota's End right now than Vault of Glass, but maybe that's because it's not in Destiny 2.
Okay, just because I'm horrible, I'm going to upset everyone for the rest of the video until we might switch it around. I'm going to stick it above Vault.
Yeah, you know what, it's controversial, but God, people are going to hate that, man. I hate that.
Yeah, just fire away in the comments, eh?
Yeah, I suppose so.
Okay, next up. We have...
Right, do you know who's next up? We have the Kingsfall, Oryx.
Kingsfall might be coming back. We still don't know. But there is a very, very good chance that Kingsfall is coming back.
I've got a lot of good things to say about Kingsfall.
I really like Kingsfall. Despite all the... I think people really seem to hate on opening up the door, which is...
yeah.
The encounter, you know, when you're going across to the plates from the middle and then on the sides.
Yeah.
I don't mind that because there's still momentum and you're still killing stuff. It's only because people find it relatively easy, but...
yeah, I suppose that could be... I remember playing this as soon as it came out, day one. Is it Golgoroth? Is that the name of the encounter where you shoot the things? That's a very creative and fun encounter.
Again,
I also really like the boss design and all of that.
Yeah.
Raid Exotic's quite cool. Yeah, it's quite a lengthy raid. It's got some really cool aesthetics. Yeah, I really enjoy it. I don't know what else to say. I would happily play it, and also that whole like relic taken thing with the parkour.
Absolutely.
Quite cool as well.
And I mean, just the parkour in general when you're going across all the dreadnoughts.
Yeah, the little things that knock you. Yeah, it's actually quite cool.
Whether we'd be coming back to that very soon or anyone else was doing that for the first time, it was always entertaining to jump across, because
it's definitely now we've got a problem with our ranking, because surely it's better than it's got to be S tier for me anyway. That's probably but that's my favorite raid. So
just because of the sheer size and I think how well it does across all its encounters.
Also,
I think it's an S.
Yeah. And I also love that the campaign, you fight Oryx in the campaign, you have this massive quest afterwards. Well, I'm more looking at the expansion now. And then you finally finish him off inside of the raid. Really cool narrative there. And it was quite difficult. There was a lot. And also, when you finished this raid, it didn't feel like you were done with the expansion.
Absolutely.
You got so many like quests and things to do. And it was just this really cool experience, I think, as a whole. But if we're just looking at the encounter design, maybe it's not as good as some of the other raids on this list. But overall, fantastic bit of kit.
I think we'll be repeating ourselves soon, but... The reason I like Kingsfall as well is because the exotic exclusive inside was one of the best options for the actual raid itself.
There you go.
I mean, there's another exotic that'll be doing that another raid we'll look at very soon, but
I might be wrong.
It was just so unique.
I think you needed to complete the raid to get the exotic swords.
Right, but if we're talking from like a repetition aspect.
Yeah, so it was very repeatable. It was well built. It was the pinnacle activity of the expansion. But if we're looking at Kingsfall in a vacuum, if they brought this back to Destiny 2, and you know, would it really stand up with some of the other great raids on this list? I don't know. But personally, looking at it right now, I could put it up there.
Yeah, it's a whole other video, to be honest.
I could talk about Kingsfall for a very
for a while.
Yeah.
Okay. Next one.
Right. Okay. So this next one is going to be a bit of a problem because I've only played this once.
Only once.
Yes, I've only played this raid once.
Wow. Okay.
I really enjoyed the expansion, but I was very busy at school, I think. So.
Oh right, I'd imagine because it came out in.
Yeah, it wasn't a good time for us, was it?
What was the expansion called?
It was Rise of Iron.
Rise of Iron.
The expansion.
I remember you talking about Rise of Iron.
So Rise of Iron is a lot of people's favorite expansions. I'm just gonna say now, I can't really rank this raid because I haven't played enough of it, and I didn't have as much playtime in Rise of Iron as I did in every other expansion in the game. It was one of those things where I played through the campaign, did the raid once, got all the exotics, and kind of that was it. So I'm going to leave this one up to you where you think you'd put it.
It actually could be another S tier raid. And the reason
some of the encounters are really
I say that is because so the theme of it was I forgot what it's called, the red stuff. Siva. It was all Siva themed, and all the bosses had like Siva infused into them and all the areas, and it's almost like another element we hadn't seen before, but it wasn't quite. And the way that the boss room layout worked, I think people really liked the idea that all three sides were coordinating, a bit like Crown of Sorrow. There was 3 sides.
Yep.
And everyone everyone had a job to do and wasn't really standing still, but it wasn't hectic at the same time. It was fun to try and one phase a boss and just take them down with rapid pace, because you could do if you wanted, if you had the swords. It worked.
There you go. So it was, it is.
And
very, very fun,
people loved the idea as well that you were on like a moving tank or car, I can't remember what it was, a vehicle, and you were carrying parts whilst also having to protect people or being protected. It was just a whole new like sort of movement in the raid
creative,
where you didn't feel as if I had to stand around and I had to shoot some people and then I had to kill a boss. It was just a very nice pacing to go from one place to another.
Of levels. I would say the difficulty was ramped up there as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
I thought it was that was like, I'd say that was like the first, that's when we really saw a big change in PvE and what was possible and what sort of puzzles and stuff. But yeah, really, really cool raid.
And I think, I mean, we wouldn't really talk about the expansion side of it, but we already have with one of them, is the fact how well they infused the Outbreak quest, the Outbreak Prime, inside into the raid.
If we're talking about that quest, S tier, like that was probably the best quest ever added to Destiny.
Honestly,
now, I know a lot of people say it was it was sort of made for the hardcore audience, like the super hardcore audience, because you wouldn't have found that as a casual player ever.
No.
But that Outbreak quest was so cool, and if we're sort of putting that into it, yes, 100% S tier.
I think the community are in sort of an absolute desperate need for another community puzzle like that, because they are the sort of the moments that people pinpoint like Destiny in its life cycle.
Yes.
Like the last time we had that sort of really was, I want to say Naomi Labs.
Black Armory? Yeah, that's what I was about to say. And that one was a bit of a problem because it was
Naomi?
too difficult. Naomi Labs,
Goddamn.
I believe.
Naomi Labs.
I remember that. That was a bit of a shame, but hey,
it was
I really
cool.
would like them to do it again.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, I'm happy with that, to be honest with you. I think people are going to be pretty angry about Crota being above Atheon.
We have got a few more to go still.
Yeah, okay, so what happened next, Harrison?
Well,
what happened next?
Destiny 1 ended, and then we were into Destiny 2 when I started playing, and we had Leviathan.
Then the Leviathan pops up, and you're chucking it straight into beta.
Well,
I really enjoy this raid.
Yeah, I really like this raid as well.
We literally can't play this raid anymore. It's inaccessible.
It's funny, but I'll tell you what, I'll have a clip rolling here hopefully at some point in the background.
Well,
but I remember to this day still doing my first ever completion and having a trace rifle as the best thing for damage output on the boss was insane. Cold Heart. And the only way you could have it...
We might have done it together, I don't know.
I think we did afterwards, but we had many teams running. We were not the greatest players, honestly. It took us about a couple of weeks, but we got it in the end. But I just remember it was a pre-order exotic. And like,
the Cold Heart.
Yeah, and if you didn't have it, you had to run Merciless, or you had to hope you got Sins of the Past rocket launcher from a previous encounter.
Was just so different. But I suppose let's talk about the raid itself. So starting off, you've probably noticed there's a bit of a theme. The last 4 raids were different enemy races, and when Destiny 2 came out, everyone was saying, what's the one enemy race that hasn't had a raid? And it was the Cabal. So people were thinking, how are they going to do this? What's it going to be like? And then we obviously got Callus, which is just such a cool character, and that raid was really, really fun. But what was the first thing? We actually had the Underbelly, which is a whole different thing.
Well, it's however you wanted it. You either had the Castellum, which was like open world, but you still limited to you weren't limited for the first time in a raid to go down one path to do this encounter first or the other counter.
Yeah, that replayability was really.
And then,
emphasized.
if you didn't want to do that and you needed a shortcut to all the other encounters, if you were, playing at a more hardcore level or you're trying to do faster runs, then the Underbelly was available, which was.
And there's also the key system as well, wasn't there? Really, really.
Yeah,
cool.
different as well for wanting your loot or extra loot.
Yeah, very replayable, very, very replayable raid. And what about the encounters here? What's probably your favorite encounter?
I think my favorite encounter. I mean, again, it's going to be really controversial. I want to say the Pleasure Gardens with the dogs.
Yeah, dogs.
I mean, it was so easy.
So unique.
When we playing it like a couple years on and showing new people into it and then replaying it, you think, wow, this is really basic. But at the time, it was a whole nother experience to go through the doors with 6 people lined up. I remember we all used to pretend in the mic to be quiet, but it didn't matter.
Yeah.
And everyone would, scoot off to the dogs really slowly. And yeah, it was just I don't know.
That was a really
back then.
fun.
It was just a real big thing for me to
Gorgons.
try and kill your dogs before running back in. It was just a
I know
great
what you mean
moment.
though. You pick up that orb, you can't shoot. You go into third person, and you're almost sneaking around this garden, and there's that chance.
Yeah.
It was a really cool dynamic, and I really enjoyed that encounter. I think there's not really a bad encounter in this raid. The gauntlet, was it called?
The gauntlet was cool. With the you had to shoot the symbols on the inside and run around the outside. Yeah, the baths. I quite like the baths as well, even though again it was simple. It's just a shame with the baths that you all had to come to the middle, and just the lamps were very easy to kill. I mean, we'll kill, we'll break. You had to kill 3 sets of lamps.
Yeah, I know what you mean. With Dubious Volley, I mean, Wardcliff Coil was the.
Pretty much anything. They were very breakable.
I feel like this is better than Crota, though.
It is. I mean,
it
people are probably screaming like, "There's so many better things than Crota."
Yeah, if when people click on a video, they skip to the middle, they look at our ranking.
Right.
They're gonna be like, "What is going on?"
Let's put it here.
Yeah.
Not quite
I would
S,
say so.
but again,
Yeah.
Leviathan very cool. Callus very cool.
Yeah.
Right.
Very, very cool raid.
Next one.
Oh, boss fight as well. We've got to mention that, the whole void room and all of that.
Yeah.
Whole dynamic, the chalice, symbols, crazy stuff going on in there.
Again, very basic for nowadays if we ever brought that back. But back then, that was a real pain to have people try and stand behind a wall that was pulling you in somehow.
Trying to organise that. Yeah. That was it was cool. Right. Moving on.
Eater of Worlds. Eater of Worlds.
Now, okay, are we looking at this from because Bungie marketed these things as raid layers. They didn't call them full-fledged raids, so I think it's quite difficult to compare it to something like Oryx or Callus. But
at the end of the day, there was a raid date, and people would be excited to do a raid. Full stop. Right now,
it is a raid.
I'm thinking down here. It's down here indeed.
Straight down there. It's more like a strike. It's got some cool set pieces. You go through the wind tunnel thing. Pretty cool. Rewards weren't the best.
Rewards were
poor. The only thing I can remember about it is like the boss fight cutscene.
The armor was very dull as well. I mean, they're unique nowadays, but back then, with the limited armor, when I collected that armor, it just sort of was the thing that I thought, well, I'm not going to really equip this and wear this stuff. I mean, people now might think differently, but the weapons were
like 2 new weapons. Wasn't
I
there,
think
from the Callus loot
I
pool?
believe I don't want to mix them with Spire of Stars because they all looked so similar. But I believe we had the fusion rifle. I can't remember what that is, but I'll have it on screen.
The loot wasn't very good, and I feel like everyone felt like it had been a bit rushed because they were trying to deliver these 3 raids.
Yeah,
and it felt like they had sort of repurposed one of the strikes with 6 people and a couple of mechanics. But I played it. I enjoyed the final boss fight. I remember moving the orbs around a little bit, but nowhere near as much as some of the other raids on this list.
Yeah, if I had to give it any points, I think it would be for making people coordinate. But, I mean, people really got a good grasp on it really quickly, where to coordinate all the craniums to shoot the...
That's right,
the
Vex cranium.
Different elemental orbs on the shield. And, well, one person could pretty much just manage it and just know where everything was all the time at one point. If they wanted to. So we'll leave that there. There's nothing more to say about that one.
Okay, what came next?
Spire
Was it the
of
Spire of
Stars.
Stars?
Now,
I enjoyed it more than that one. I would put it, yeah, very, very cool. Short and sweet.
I don't remember it. I tell you what, it's all coming back to me right now. I remember the start was really cool, dropping down from a high spot and going down. And I remember when playing it for the first time thinking, where else am I going to go in the Leviathan? Like, this place looks beautiful right at the start. You had to stop the pillars from, going down by throwing the ball around the room.
Oh, yeah.
And keeping the pillars up. That was a really cool idea. And then throwing it into the middle. Back then, I mean, again, probably slow paced now, but that was quite fast action then, making sure everyone stayed up.
I remember it being very difficult when it first came out, and we didn't have the power that we have now.
Yes.
We had very fixed
So-
classes.
Still very gun based, so it was hard to just eliminate enemies like at the door instantly a lot of the time.
Yeah, that was difficult, and at the time, that's what made it so rewarding and fun. I think the difficulty,
Absolutely.
even if that was, from the meta of the game or the way the game was built then,
And
but still very fun.
the loot on the first encounter, it wasn't amazing gun wise, but you had to get the emote, which was sitting in Callus's chair. Now,
There's a lot to be said about emotes and cosmetics. I forgot to say in Crota, we had the Glowhoo shader, which was a very, very popular shader.
I mean,
and I was hoping that was going to come back with maybe Witch Queen, but it didn't. And there's a lot of things like that.
I mean, we could say that for all the Master Raids when they all got reprised for D1, all the glows, but...
I was just about to say Vault of Glass as well had one called Chatter White, which was one of the only white shaders, a lot like the Trials of the Nine shader in D2.
Yes.
And that was a massive thing to get as well. And also there's a Sparrow. I don't know if you know about this, but there was a Sparrow that would have a special ability where it would overcharge and then explode.
That's cool. I never knew that.
Chaser.
That's cool.
Yeah, anyway.
Brilliant. So I think...
Little bits of nugget of information.
Yeah, in between the middle of Spire of Stars, you were pretty much doing the same thing as you learned from the first encounter, and you were carrying a ball all the way across like a wider version of what was Eater of Worlds via pillars. But you had to go in between them, and then you had to run across like engines and pillars and whatnot, all moving platforms. And that was a bit of a drag as well, because you expected a lot of enemies, but there really wasn't. There was only the odd few scions and stuff. It wasn't major at that point either. And then I think what I remember from Spires mostly is the final encounter was the toughest thing I'd ever done in the game by then. Where you had the 4 plates at the back and you had the 3 in the middle, and you had to coordinate with the team that saw the ships light up with the other team to go and stand on certain plates and throw the balls inside the doors that opened up in the middle underneath where the boss was, which took so much teamwork at the time. Again, I think that if that came back and everyone was playing that now, everyone would love that in encounter, because
yeah, you're right.
It
would be a lot more powerful. Yeah.
It had enemy density because enemies were tough.
That was a big thing, wasn't it? Everyone was saying about enemy density.
Yeah.
It was Forsaken that really sort of started to fix all those things.
Right. And obviously escalation, I mean, it's not about the raid, but escalation protocol was about, and the only way you could do good damage was through the Achilleo shotgun for insane top tier damage, which had like a 0.1% drop rate.
Trench barrel.
Which was ridiculous.
That was so difficult to get. And it was on rotation.
Yeah.
There was 3 weapons. There was an SMG, a shotgun, and a sniper rifle. And you would have to farm escalation. How many waves was there? Was there 7 or 9 or something?
There was a lot. And I remember as well,
difficult.
Hunters being an absolute top tier character for... No, it was Arcstrider with Raiden Flux.
Oh, yeah.
Because
that was the
Arcstrider
did
insane damage back then. So it was just a really unique moment for like weapons and for character-wise for class in that raid.
Very fun time. I mean, obviously we didn't have all the nice things we have now, but
yeah,
very fun time for the game then. It was nice. It was a nice breath of fresh air. It was when Destiny just started to make a bit of a turnaround from that, launch.
Absolutely. So I think Spire of Stars probably runs along the same thing with Eater of Worlds, as in the armor was pretty much a reskin, and the weapons were not great again. Yeah, we didn't carry it.
Yeah, but hey, we enjoyed it, and I think that makes a lot of sense. So where are we going now?
Before we go on to the next one, where do we leave Spire of Stars? Is it on the same as Vogue, or is it below Vogue?
I think maybe C tier, just because if Vogue's B, it's got to be C. But it is a very strong, and you got to remember, Harrison, we are talking about a raid layer with pretty poor loot and whatnot.
All right.
So, but I really enjoy it for what it is. Is it as good as Vault of Glass? Probably not.
No.
Like imagine we had Spire of Stars come back rather than Vault of Glass for that expansion. It would be very, very different. So that's my attitude there, but I do think it's very, very good.
Okay. Right. On to a big one.
Is this now
on the next one?
Riven.
It is.
Is it Riven? Okay.
We have Last Wish.
God, what do we say about this? What do we say about
immediately,
this?
I don't think we have to...
Yes.
You see, I'm going to put it in S automatically, and you're going to agree, right?
There you go. Fair enough.
But,
yeah, I'll give you that.
I mean, if we were going to get into the details, where does it sit amongst the top 3 here that I've got? Is it the best raid of all time?
It's as good as Kingfall. It's as good as Kingfall for me.
Okay.
The only reason I think...
Then let's put it here for now.
Kingsfall better is the nostalgia. And if the nostalgia wasn't there and they both came out,
yeah,
I'd probably put it above. Because I don't want to start here, but I think the final boss has some of the coolest mechanics and coolest arena of any boss ever.
Right.
I also think the loot was really unique. The location in Forsaken, the Dreaming City, is just phenomenal.
Yeah.
And the idea of the Wish Dragons, the Ahamkara? The idea of those has always been in Destiny, and to finally see one as a raid boss as well, to be able to fight it was just so cool.
Yeah.
And also the voice acting from every voice actor, the design, the encounters, the story, the narrative, the wish wall. So much stuff in that little raid, and yeah, very, very good.
Yeah, I think it just hit the nail on the head with everything. I mean, like you said, design was cool. The weapons were awesome. Back then, we got
encounters.
We got new supers within the subclasses we had already.
Yeah, we did, didn't we?
And within the first encounter at the time, if you finished it, you got a big mote of light to then upgrade.
Yes, you get Blade Barrage and whatnot. Yeah.
Yeah, which was so rewarding. I mean, it's a one-time thing, but it felt good to even do just the first encounter for the first time.
Is that Callie, the first encounter?
It is. And you had to...
That was a pretty cool encounter. Good difficulty as well, because people could come in from, quite a beginner standpoint, and they could probably complete that encounter.
Absolutely.
And then the difficulty, what's really good about Last Wish is that I would say the difficulty ramps up with each encounter.
Yes.
I think it's pretty linear. So I think that's a really good thing for a raid to be. And also, absolutely gorgeous design. Like, when you go outside on that bridge, oh God, it's so cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I would say, just like Kingsfall, 1,000 voices. If you got that to drop, you went absolutely nuts. And
a chest room at the end.
Yeah.
Oh, the heart encounter. God, this is a very, very good length raid.
And
it's really fun. Great loot.
Even if, just like Kingsfall, you didn't have it at first, if you ended up getting it, and I understand that people didn't always do Riven legit. Most people haven't done Riven legit still. It was still one of the best damaging weapons for that raid when it came out.
Yeah.
Which is what made it so...
very unique.
Iconic.
Weapon.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm a huge fan of that, and I'm happy to put that in S. Is there anything else really to say about it?
I mean, did you mention Queen's Walk? I mean... it's not much different from... it's a lot more heart racing than the one you have in the other raid, the one that I'm...
When you've defeated Riven, you've got to do that last encounter, and you're all so tired because it's like day one, or it's like the first week or first month or whatever, and then you've got to do that last encounter, and you're making all these silly mistakes because you've just been through all of this, and it's just your heart's racing. You're like, come on, let's just get to the end. We've got to finish this. I need to eat my dinner, and I think that was what made that encounter so much fun. But I think obviously with better equipment and now knowing the raid, it's obviously slightly easier.
Yes.
But like anything, when it first comes out and you have that experience with it, you're kind of attached to that, and you can't take that away from your ranking.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's my opinion.
10 out of 10. All right, we'll leave that there. Everyone knows it's a great raid. So we'll move on to the next one. And the next one is...
Garden?
No. Not Garden. It was Scourge of the Past.
Scourge.
Scourge of the Past.
What do I say about this one?
This one's really interesting.
Right.
This is the least played raid for me. This is the one that I've least played.
Least played. I think I probably have 2 or 3 completions on it. Yeah, so then again, probably my second least. So, what do we say about this?
Well, people, I tell you what, one thing I hear, which I think everyone can agree on, I regret not playing enough of this raid because when I first played, I didn't respect fully that you had this entire last city to drive around whilst trying to take on like a really unique enemy where you had to get close, which brought risk. But it was those special vandals where if you got close enough, they would spin those 3 balls in the air, create the shields, and you had to have one person in the front and one person in the back to break the crits, to then go and unload and do loads of damage, which is really cool. And it's just a perfect enemy design because with risk, it comes reward as well afterwards of getting them, taken care of.
Very good point. That is a really good point because we look at these little raids and we don't think about what some of these encounters have inspired and good things that they've tested, and I think that little enemy in this raid makes it really cool.
Yeah, so I think people loved, I mean, just for me, because I couldn't get my head around enough, unfortunately, where to go at times, where to take the orb from the start to the different pods that were around the edge of the map.
Yeah.
But so I loved doing the map reading, and you could see everyone live on the map.
Was cool. Oh yeah,
and you could tell people.
That first encounter, so cool.
Just helps bring that coordination to the raids so much more. So it probably looked high and dry first ever time, but when I look back at it now, that's such a really cool first encounter. So. Yeah, I love it.
Was it also the first ever Sparrow encounter in this raid?
Yeah, so the second encounter came with a bit of a Sparrow run, which is interesting because depending how you feel about using the Sparrow is how much you loved it. Now, if you were lucky enough, or if you've got it from the kiosk, you could also get the fastest Sparrow in the game, which is still around today.
Sparrow in the game.
I can't remember what it's called. I'll have it on screen if you don't know what it is. But
essentially, it's faster. It made this encounter much better. Like we were saying earlier, whenever something comes from the raid that makes the raid easier, it's a great formula. So if you were to get this Sparrow, it would make that encounter slightly easier, which is a good thing because we like the raid making the raid easier, like exclusive mods and whatnot.
Absolutely. It was just one of those things for hardcore players to come back to. If they didn't have everything, that would be something they'd come back for.
What was the raid exotic here?
Yeah, and the raid exotic was Anarchy.
The most dominant, I think, longest reigning dominant weapon in Destiny.
It's got to be, and it still does well today. It's just not the big.
Very unique.
Yeah, it's so unique. You could attach 2 of these little tripmine grenades to a boss, so either to the boss or on the floor, and they would do insane amounts of damage over time. And then you could use special. This is when special weapons started coming in, making use with boss damage as well. Because I think up to then, people only thought about using, boss killing weapons with heavy weapons and didn't think about using special weapons as much, but taking on those mages like around the map and stuff.
Yeah.
So
that passive damage, the only thing it's comparable to is something like Witherhoard.
Absolutely.
We don't get many weapons like that, so that being in the heavy slot was really cool. Great design, and not much else to say about that raid, really.
Yeah. In terms of where it sits, I think
we want to push it up, don't we? But I think Vault of Glass being there is almost like a wall. Like I feel like
it really is. I might have to move that again. We'll move it around in a minute. I tell you what, we'll stick it in B. We'll stick it behind Vogue.
Yeah.
And we'll go from there. So next we have Crown of Sorrow.
I really enjoy Crown of Sorrow. You have the title, don't you? You have the title for doing it flawless, for doing every challenge.
Yeah.
So you must like it,
the reason I love Crown of Sorrow is because I tell you what, we'll get away with the cons of this, in my opinion. The con of this is it's a very short raid, a bit like Eater. Once you got to the repetitive part of playing the raid, and the loot was mediocre. And the first encounter was extremely long. extremely long. You were split into 2 teams of 3 on each side of the map, and you had to pretty much
Wasn't it with buffs?
split and swap the buff with this. I don't know. It was
little relic
infused relic ball in the middle.
Very similar to the new duality dungeon. Those sort of
almost, but you weren't susceptible to death unless you had the buff. If you didn't transfer your buff over in the middle of that. So,
and you can only damage certain enemies, right?
Yeah, you can only damage certain enemies which had like an immunity shield over them. Pretty much.
I'm sure but no, I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it probably more than Vault of Glass Destiny 2. Let's just say, and I probably enjoyed it more than the last raid we just spoke about. So I would still put it in B though. I don't think it quite makes its way into A.
Yeah, I mean,
but the Taraba. If we were talking about raid exotics,
do you know what, the Taraba at first we saw that and we all went no, and then we all suddenly realised. I tell you what, I think it's only felt more recent because of exotic
like
primary damage being buffed.
Yeah.
And realizing that if you got it going, that it could do special ammo damage, pretty much. Like, you know, it did as much damage as special weapons. That's what I'm trying to say. And so it would, it would be good even for contest mode. It would just shred through enemies, no problem.
Was there anything else any more loot in that?
Not really loot, but for me, I just loved the thing I loved about it, and why it's my favorite raid. Which some people are going to be like, what? Is because...
Is that your favourite raid?
It is my favourite raid. It's because I love Golron's design and the fact that there was 3 of them in each corner. It was easy to read to people. Yeah. I really liked the idea of going around the room. No one was ever really standing still. There was always something to do, but again...
Teams of 2. Yeah, no, I rank it really highly as well. That final encounter, even the second from last encounter... Really, really fun. And you know his hands, when his hands go and you have to shoot his hands back.
Yeah, exactly. There's a big axe that would come down and you'd get so scared if it would kill you. You know.
Really, really fun, creative raid. And obviously the Crown of Sorrow is a massive part of the story now.
Exactly.
And being able to witness that event that happened in the Leviathan.
Yeah.
Cool story.
I think the final thing I just got to say about it real quickly is final boss, the best thing for damage was Legend of Acrius. And Legend of Acrius... It's just one of those weird exotics where you just think that's never going to make it into like a meta. But it did, and all you did was shoot his knee off. Until his kneecap came clean off, and that was the way you could do it. You could do it in one phase, and it was the most satisfying thing ever. As long as you had the catalyst.
One phasing him was really
fun. Was so cool. So there you go. I tell you what, just to upset everyone again, it's going in A tier until we sort it out.
I suppose if this is more of our opinion than the community opinion, then I'm happy with the ranking.
I'm sticking it there. I don't care
if we had 2 Vault of Glasses, I would put Destiny 2 Vault of Glass in B and Destiny 1 Vault of Glass in A. That would be my split there.
Yeah, I don't think I could disagree.
Averaging it onto B is not too bad.
Absolutely.
Right, so we have 3 more left.
Right, next one. Garden of Salvation.
Garden, really fun aesthetic. Love running through the garden. I think between encounters, really, really cool looking. The final boss looks cool. Love the radiolarian fluid. And what was the raid exotic here?
Raid exotic was Divinity. Now,
Divinity.
Divinity.
Really enjoyed that quest. Very divisive.
Divinity gives me so many flashbacks. Because you and I were running after this thing for quite a while, because I don't know what happened, but I remember we played Shadowkeep very early on, but I think when it came to the raid, we didn't tackle it until later on in the expansion. And
it was very difficult to
get to. A lot of people already got it, so why would you end up, bothering to do a Divinity run? Yeah, Divinity was special because you had to do puzzles which were linking up with people with these tethers, these white tethers to different Vex cubes. And so the more you did it, the harder they sort of got. You had to move with some of them. You had to change spots.
Actually.
And the final bit was easy enough, but some people just couldn't wrap it around their heads that you had to get in a line, and then you had to get in a set number order on the plates. And it got faster and faster each time. Again, unique, very cool. But
just like the Outbreak quest, I would say slightly easier. But I will say the problem with this was, and the problem I know a lot of people comment on my Divinity video. They say I can't find a team, and I think that's more of a commentary on multiplayer and single player Destiny. Are you a solo player, needing 6 people
Yeah.
To sit down and say, I'm going to do this whole quest. It probably takes how many hours would you say? 2-3 hours?
Yeah, possibly more.
Very
I
large
mean, it
commitment,
depended how
and,
coordinated you all were. You see, for the people who were tackling the puzzle first time, it was very stressful because you thought,
Yes.
well, this is just not normal, you know? Yeah.
It takes long, your progression's not saved, reasonably difficult. You've got to know how to complete the raid too, it's not isolated. And yeah, so that is arguably one of the hardest exotics in the game to get. So I can understand why people would be frustrated with that. But for me, if anything, it elevates the raid. I quite like having difficult to get a thing in an expansion, so I'm happy with that.
Yeah, it was well deserved if you had the patience. I tell you what, I just recently trio flawless the raid, and the raid is aged really well. I think that's one thing I got to say. All the encounters feel unique. There's a fast-paced bit at the start, you know, if you want to try and open the doors up real quick. Where the enemy density is really good, where you're trying to protect all the confluxes on all four sides before you meet up all in the middle.
That part's really fun.
Yeah, really cool. Shooting all the hydras, it's just non-stop for a fair bit in between becoming enlightened and trying to kill all the enemies where they need to be killed. And yeah, it's just very nice having, again, you've got 2 teams of 3 at one point where people are picking up motes, and there's these short time events where people gotta shoot the eyes off the massive Vex guy. I forgot his name. He's got where it spins around in circles, which was such a pain on when doing it yourself.
I mean, this is the best part of Shadowkeep, let's be honest.
Yeah, it is.
It is the best part of the
So if we were ranking it,
expansion.
S, A or B?
I think
Even C.
It's either low A or high B, because I think B is a pretty good spot to keep it in, because I don't know actually, because I genuinely think it's better than Destiny 2 Fog. I'd rather play it.
I tell you what,
But
I'm gonna stick it in high B,
yeah.
and we'll see how that looks afterwards.
It is a good raid, there's no doubt about that, but I think Shadowkeep and my attitude towards Destiny around that time, I wasn't really enjoying Shadowkeep that much, so I don't have enough playtime with it to make like a very accurate judgment of
I'll
all
agree
the
with that.
mechanics. But I think it's, again, I've not played it as much as the other raids, so that's why I'm putting it in B, but I'm sure someone who loves this thing, maybe if they've got the title or something, they've probably put that in A or even S. Moving on, what have we got?
We have got Deep Stone Crypt. And I tell you what, this is the first time where I didn't play the raid around the time when it came out, nor even tried like a day one thing where I jumped in and messed about, or even tried properly. This was special for a lot of people, but I just wasn't there for it. So, I mean, were you there for it?
I wasn't there for it. I think I played it afterwards.
Okay.
I think I've got
Well,
a couple of completions on it.
I'm gonna have to go from a community standpoint. Even though I've played it a fair amount, I just don't think it's the same for the people who played it for the first time. But people cannot get over how good the music is.
Yes,
do you know?
I put the music in a lot of videos.
You know, right after
Deep Stone Lullaby.
Yeah, right after you finish second encounter and you go outside into space, literally in space, and you're floating
Nothing
across.
like that in Destiny.
The music is just amazing, and it's slow parkour. But, you know...
It's a very interesting perspective that we're going music.
It distracts
the
you
sound
well.
Design, so I don't know who made this or whose idea.
Do you know
it was,
what? Personally, I think it's an age thing.
I
I think it's an age thing that we take the game's design more than for its gameplay aspect. But
we're not looking at face value, are we?
I mean, I don't know.
Yes.
Day one...
level design, music, just all of those things are really good in this raid. Dare I even say perfect. This has probably got better sound design and aesthetic than all of the raids we've looked at, just because that space section is so unique and so much more different to anything we've seen in Destiny. But then again, the mechanics and the things that make a raid drag it down that little bit. So
I mean,
I think you're right.
I don't know if this had as much of an impact on you, because I believe you were on PC at this time, but this is when it also got the upgrade on consoles. So things like the first encounter where you were bringing your sparrows, or the Fallen's like sparrows versions, across the maps in the snowy plains, not knowing where to go, trying to get to the different domes to survive. That was just different in itself. And then Yeah, it had all different paces, to be honest. I think it's just whether you not enjoyed it personally. Because I kind of like it, but I don't know. I find last encounter and I find second encounter just a bit weird to follow. I really like first encounter where someone's trying to pass the buffs round and just kill the enemies on each side, because you were locked off. You had a light room, you had a dark room technically, and the first boss initially wasn't even really a boss. It was just killing the computer. I can't remember what it's called.
I think when a raid has one encounter that you don't like, or a couple of encounters that you just don't enjoy as much, it really makes you not want to play it as much, and it really breaks that momentum.
Yeah.
And I think that's something we're not giving Vault of Glass credit for. It's one of those raids where every encounter is pretty straightforward, pretty fun, and there's not like one encounter that's monotonous and long and annoying.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think all it takes is one encounter that's just not as well crafted, and it really brings that raid down. So, I think I'm with you on that, putting it there.
My favourite encounters were second encounter and actually third, because everyone had a role in third, but you could just say nowadays, are we going to have set roles, or are we just going to go chaos? So anyone picks anything up, and it still works. And that might seem boring to people, but again, there's 3 people who've got roles to play, and people need to pick up. So at least 4 people are still doing something at one time, and there's 2 people just killing. Again, lots of enemies. So.
I guess we've got the new kid on the block now. We have the boy.
Valve Disciple, and again, well, I tell you what, this one.
God, what do we say about this? I played this with you, I think.
So we played this release, but this one's special for me because I did the day one for this one. Now, my first day one properly was when Vogue got remastered, and we didn't get that, unfortunately, but Vow we did, but we got it after the day one. So because obviously the day one had a mess up, which I think is what it's known for, really. If you're a well-known player, anyone who's semi-hardcore knows about this day one, and it was stretched over 2 days.
Notorious.
So I technically have the emblem on a contest mode form now.
Okay, so you have the emblem, you prepped for it, it was your first proper. And when we say day one, like, for instance, my Taken King day one, I wasn't prepping properly and everything.
Right.
But when we say day one, you properly prepped for this.
This was insane because this is off the back of what I think is debatably the best DLC in the game, or in the franchise. That's what I'm going to say right now.
Yeah.
I mean, people might say otherwise, there might be some way-ups, but I think ultimately Witch Queen was. And this is the one I waited for. I remember when Beyond Light came out,
Destiny 2. Yeah,
and I was like, okay, this is cool, but we've been teased Witch Queen, and I know what's coming, right? Yeah. And this one just like ticked all my boxes. I was impressed with every encounter. They were
unique boss.
Really cool. Caretaker was awesome. You had to fly upstairs, up like large amounts of stairs. They did a similar thing with like Scourge. So to stun the boss, you had to hit him from the back and the front.
And I also think the sheer amount of symbols you had to remember. It's such a little thing, but I really like it. I really like how there's so many little symbols.
Yeah, I think there's perspective on it. I don't mind it at the time. For now, I actually find it a little annoying because I haven't played in a while, and I actually forget them sometimes now. So I just go, oh, man with hole.
You try and explain it to each other.
And
exactly.
I can't. Again, I can't even remember what that symbol is. Someone has told me it, but I remember the last time I was told that, and then they said it, and I was like, yes, fine. And when you say fleet, and I just go, oh, pyramid ships, and then you just hope people know what you're on about. They're relatively straightforward still, but I would say that was the only annoying part.
Yeah.
But day one,
I remember people would get cup and chalice, and people would call it all sorts. So
I don't want to get
very good.
I don't want to get the experience mixed up, but that was something special. So I do rank it kind of high.
I really enjoyed playing it with you guys.
So,
the final encounter is so much fun, and also the rewards, very cool. We got a raid glaive, first of its kind.
Yes, the raid glaive works really well. The submission SMG,
which I don't have.
Yes, I don't have the exotic.
Okay, guys, if anyone's watching this from my channel, I will get a review out of the of that exotic as soon as I get it. And if you've got it, join the Discord and send me a message.
There you go.
And I'll get a review up.
We gotta get some clears up. But yeah, it was. I mean, it's not the best exotic in the world, but it's nice because it sort of stands out for the Void 3.0 rework and being able to take off debuffs and spread them onto other targets, which makes it.
When I saw that, I was like,
which does make it unique.
Cool.
So it's very cool. I would say my favorite encounters are probably. I don't know if I like them as such or if I just find them interesting. I find third encounter interesting, and I find the first encounter interesting.
Remind me what third encounter is.
Third encounter is kind of like Deepstone, but with movement. So everyone there was 2 different relics, which went into 3 different relics. So someone had a taken all. Someone had the shield
to get all of them.
from Volg, and then someone had the prism thing, which had to shoot the knight. So, you had people rotating. So the people with the relics could only read a certain set of symbols, and the people who didn't have the relics.
No, I think that's one of the coolest encounters. I really like
it.
You probably have to communicate and think.
It's more difficult than the other one, but I think it's fit for Destiny's time because we are so strong. So it tests.
Exactly.
It does test whether you are a good player or not. So
very rewarding.
Yeah.
And where would you put it?
I am gonna have to put it in A, and I'm gonna have to put it at the top of A.
Yep. 100%.
I think some people are gonna want to put it in S. I feel like it was one of those raids that was meant to be made for the S tier, but I just don't think it is. I can't quite put my finger on it. I just don't think it is. And I think
I know what you mean. There's certain raids that just feel bigger.
It might just be because
like
it's a little long.
Raids.
There's some bits that either we though might appreciate is a little bit distressing. Like,
and it's the newest raid as well. Remember that?
Yeah.
Like maybe in a year's time, we'll maybe look back at it and go, that was the best raid. But for the moment, you are right. Yeah, we can put it there. How do we feel about this ranking then?
So the ranking's finished at the moment, and currently we got Kingsfall at the bottom, and we got Eastward Worlds at the bottom, respectively. I think it's just the ones in between on the A and B we might have to shuffle around, because some of them are personal preference, and some of them...
I think Crota's great, and we both love it, but I think it's a B tier. I'm saying that because
I'll move it.
It's
be like that.
I just think it doesn't quite make its way up to those bigger raids.
No, it doesn't really.
And I'm saying this, I really enjoy Crota. Can you finish it in 15 minutes?
Yeah.
And would you really want to, if you want to sit down and play a raid, you want to sit down and play a raid, you don't want to play a strike. But if Crota was like a dungeon, fantastic. Or if it was,
Okay.
But I still think it's great for what it is. It's just obviously a very small bit of content, but I do love it.
I'm going to do some quick 5 movements here, and I want you to tell me if you agree or disagree and say why. So I'm going to do this.
Okay, go on.
Let's see if you agree or not. So if I did this...
Yep.
Now how do we feel?
There you go. That's it. That's
how do we
literally what I
feel?
was thinking. So, we were both saying about Golron, and I think, again, a smaller scale raid, a bit like Crota, and I feel like these smaller scale raids, they can't quite make it into that upper bracket because it's almost unfair on the other raids that are just so much bigger. They're literally twice the amount of content.
Absolutely.
So I think for what they are, that's a really good ranking. And for instance, if you look at the layers, Spire of Stars is significantly better than Eaters of Worlds, but they're obviously both similar size.
Oh, I just realised.
Crota.
I don't think we ranked Deepstone Crypt properly.
Okay.
Because I'm looking at this and I'm thinking it's not really a B raid, a B tier raid. I think.
What are you thinking?
Would you be mad if I think it sits here.
Yeah, I think it does sit there as well. I think that is probably perfect.
Looks and aesthetics go only so far until you hit the core gameplay of the raid.
Yes, and I think it's from the newer raids, obviously.
Absolutely. So it just gets a natural upgrade over the others.
At that standard. Yeah, I'm happy with that. How do you feel about all of that?
Yeah, I tell you what, I'm gonna make one final movement, and it just because I'm taking slowly away my personal preference here with Crota, and I think Scourge sits over Crown, and I think this is the perfect raid list, raid tier
I
list.
think I've agreed. I was gonna sit here and say, oh, I don't agree with this. Obviously, I would put the original Vault of Glass higher than normal Vault of Glass, but now we've played it in Destiny 2. For some reason, that's made me like. It's sort of one of those things. Now we've got it. Like we don't have to worry about saying how good it is. Like, but no, I'm happy with that. King's Fall being my favorite raid of all time. And then I do really enjoy Callus as well, but I couldn't quite put him in S. And then Riven, obviously mechanically sound, fantastic raid, great aesthetic. Yeah, so I'm happy with that, Harrison.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming on to join me for a collab.
Mate. No worries, mate. It's a pleasure.
This is a bit of a long one, so if you guys stuck around to the end, thank you so much for watching all the way, or really just part of it. It is a long one.
Subscribe to his channel. This guy is making some fantastic Destiny content, and if you want to watch anything on builds, then yeah, definitely have a look at what he's made.
Yeah. Before you go, do you want to promote perhaps the game you're working on, or anything else you've got going?
I'm making a space combat game for Destiny, and there should be an update, or maybe even a trailer soon. But yeah, that's about it for me.
Awesome, brilliant. If you guys want to talk about the raid tier list or any of the videos I've previously made, be sure to join my Discord with the link in the description below.
And tell us we're wrong in the comments.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll...
it is what it is.
Yeah,
Isn't it?
We'll catch you all in the next one.
All right. With that being said, thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.